So I gotta admit, I was thinking there would never be anything more shatterproof than Aisha's chest wrap, because let's be honest, that thing, the fact that it's still holding strong, the fact that at this point you could probably bury our girl and the wrap would remain, that thing is durable. I think that's more durable than Hestia's Chestia wrap there, because that thing just don't be shattering or breaking. But honestly, Welf, he came in clutch. He made a shatterproof sword of flaming death. And seriously, the boy came in clutch. He was not only the MVP of the episode, I mean, he literally did, as far as we know, the first time someone was ever foolish enough to try to forge a weapon in the middle of basically a monster's den. But in doing so with that very precious ore, he made something that is literally the make it or break it for them. And right now, as long as you get some people that can funnel in some mana, I mean, he basically has a volcano in the form of a sword. And I gotta admit, the boy came in clutch. At first, I thought it was a little goofy how they were animating him, because it just didn't feel like he was really that impressive. He was just kind of like slowly swinging his sword, or his hammer, I mean. And the fact that when he actually got into it, the animation popped off. I mean, I thought it was just like a production issue, like they just didn't give it enough time in the oven, but no, like they were really getting across just how not into it he was. So when he actually kicked off and popped off, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. But yeah, this was a great episode. Welf really, at this point, if he doesn't level up by the end of this, it'll be one of the most missed opportunities that DanMachi has seen. But I do have a full live reaction to today's episode available on my Patreon, so if you're interested in seeing that, head on over and consider supporting. Because yeah, this episode was a very fun watch. I was expecting that a majority of the episode would actually be focused on Welf's side of things, because the obvious thing, like he's trying to forge a sword, that will be the most interesting content. But when you look back in hindsight, there really was only about 5 minutes worth of content. He was swinging his hammer, he needed to overcome his emotional burden, and then he needed to fire off his new sword. So really, could they have stretched that for an episode? Some production committees might, if they really were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. But DanMachi said, hey, let's give Belle and Ryu a more interesting emotional time in terms of giving them like half of the episode. We'll focus on Hestia, we'll focus on some flashback stuff as well. We'll just spread and sprinkle that Welf story throughout the episode in a pretty intriguing way, and I think they did a really good job. He has to swing a hammer for a few minutes, and it's not working. He then starts thinking about his mentors and himself, and basically overcomes it and forges it. There's not a lot to do other than we have to hold off the people. Oh god, the shield's broke. I'm gonna toss my bow. We're all panicking. And then that's all there really was to it. But the content that they had there was compelling. It was good. So the fact that we were building up to that over the course of the episode, focusing on the other characters, seeing where they're at. So by the time we get that volcanic explosion, you just felt proud. I mean, the sword looked cool. It looked like honestly, kind of looked like a Demon King sword, if I'm being honest. And the initial fire blast, I was like, oh, that sword ain't breaking anytime soon. And then when he stabs it into the ground and uses Cassandra as like kind of like a boost, and you just see like the entire ground explode, that was one of the coolest attacks we've seen. And something I've been praising about this DanMachi season is that they know how to escalate and de-escalate. So we can look back at the previous twin-headed beast fight, right? There was moments where it looked like they were getting crushed, then there was moments where they looked like they were winning, and then, oh man, the beast is getting his comeback. They know how to let the characters rise and fall in believable ways. And this is the first time in a long time that it felt like there's more hope than not. I mean, they still need to go dungeon crawling, and it's not like it's something that, oh, we can just, it's not an auto attack, right? You can't just point the sword and it blasts a bunch of fireballs and basically solves everything. It's basically said that like, it's a sword that lives and dies with its wielder, but you do need to funnel in the energy for it to work. So they didn't just decide to give Excalibur to our boy and say, hey, this sword is the holy sword that's going to cut anything and we don't even have to break a sweat. No, you still have to funnel in your energy. So there is limitations, of course, but in terms of where they were at last week, the week before that, I mean, this is honestly a vacation, all things considered. And they have a good amount of people as well to work with, so I mean, if you keep your main mages safe or mana wielder safe, you're in pretty good shape, all things considered. And it's nice that they finally have something that's shatterproof, because I mean, at this point, he would have had to remember to keep at least one blast of that fire left so he could forge again, need be, if he found any more materials. But I like the pacing and the structuring and just how intense it was, because once it starts popping off, you felt like, oh man, you felt the heat from this. And a criticism I was having while watching was, like I mentioned earlier, initially when he was slamming his hammer down on the anvil, it just didn't feel like it was impressive. It just felt like a very slow animation. I was like, hey, give some more up close and personal shots, give it that speed, that momentum, add some flare effects, right? But the fact that they used that on purpose to basically make it seem like he just didn't feel like he was up for the job. But when he did feel like he was up for the job, the animation popped off and you felt the ferocity, you felt the strength, the anger, every emotion they built up in those swings. So when the heat pops off, you just felt like the animation knew exactly what it was doing this whole time. And even if you might have had some criticisms in the moment like myself, you came to appreciate them by the time we reached the finish line. When it came to Belle's stuff, I actually quite liked what they did there. Though I am of the belief here, like, I completely understand grave robbing. That is a big taboo. I don't want to do it in my own life. But I mean, if I'm tossing the dungeon on the 30th, 40th, 50th floor, I got no equipment, I don't know what I'm doing. If I see some skeletons with some nice shiny armor, yeah, I'm taking that without remorse, I gotta be honest. It'd be different if they still had their skin and stuff, but they're skeletons, they're decayed. I don't care if it just happened. I mean, that loaf of bread was looking mighty fresh, but they were skeletons from what we were seeing. For me personally, I'm like, okay, I understand about feeling guilty about it for sure, but it's not like I'm going off of a fresh corpse. Like, I'm taking that without remorse. It's live or die. Hey, if I get killed in a cavern and you need my pants for some reason or another because, oh man, maybe you just don't want to go butt naked across the cavern as you're fighting for your life, I don't need it anymore. Go ahead and take it, right? It's basically like organ donation at that point. I'm dead. I don't need to care anymore. Though I understand where they're coming from, especially for someone like Ryu, who really was hurting the most out of all of them. But the fact that even she was like, we need this stuff, I completely understood where they're coming from. And I like the fact that it just felt like that could have been them. Like, literally just the fact that they were probably doing a similar thing, trying to hold off these beasts. And you know what? Like, how much food do we have left? How much equipment do we have left? We're seeing some of them ended up taking their life. It was not a pretty sight whatsoever, but I like the fact that they were spreading that throughout the episode while also showing us Welf's side, or even showing us Hestia and the kind of plan of how they're going about things, right? What I really liked though was how we're continuing to see her flashback in terms of her familia before ultimately the horrible things that did happen to them. And I find it really interesting that the more I watch and the more I see, I really find it to be quite similar to how Belle's familia kind of operates in terms of the way the redhead girl was more or less speaking and everything. It just gives me the impression that it's like she lost so much, she suffered so much. And I think maybe sometimes looking at how Belle goes about things, she maybe see the same arrogance, that same ignorance that maybe cost them so much. But I think the difference will be by the time we reach the end of this arc, they will make it for the most part. Maybe all of them, or maybe they'll suffer very minor defeats in comparison. And I like what they're doing in reminding us that there's more perspectives than just Belle's, or there's more perspectives than just Welf's. And I think, honestly, in comparison to how they separated characters before earlier in this season, I think they're handling it absolutely spot on with how they're doing it currently. I mean, this season isn't plain. I know I'm not alone feeling that. Everyone I've been talking to have been like, yeah, this is absolutely some of the best DanMachi, if not the best DanMachi content for them, and I'm loving it. I stick by what I say though. Aisha's boob wrap is absolutely next level durability, but hey, leave it to Welf to say, hey, let me throw my hat into the ring and have this shatterproof sword. But thoughts and feelings yourself down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here, ring that bell so you can get as many notifications to the channel as possible, and as I mentioned, full live reaction is available on my Patreon. And while you're there, you'll also get yourself a video shout out among other perks. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.